Good morning. We are Group 2. We are focusing on decent work and poverty reduction. If here's the table of contents, I guess you will forget it in the next second. So let's get straight into the point. We all know that women are facing many difficulties in getting a job. But have you ever wondered how this problem came about and how this problem was formed? I have an answer from a demographic perspective. Let us see some data. Here is the life expectancy at birth on average. Now all of us can enjoy a very long life, about 70 years old. But it was not an old phenomenon. It's quite new. Look at this. From 1960, people can only live around 50 years. And next, about child mortality. You don't need to look into these details. But that here is a 50%. Before the industrialization, many half of kids will die when they are young, and from 35 to 50% of kids died before reaching the age 5. And after that, we all know the child mortality is extremely low. We live in an era that both fertility and mortality rate was very high, and deaths could happen at any time in your 10s, 20s, 30s, and infectious disease was the main cause of death. But thanks to the technology, the mortality rate is decreasing, and this leads to a very big change. I won't go some details, but the point is that have as many kids as people did in the ancient time is no longer necessary and not affordable. So here's a modern society: low fertility rate and low mortality rate. And now, usually, total fertility rate means the number of kids of our women have in the lifetime. So now we usually have 1 or 2 kids in the lifetime, and we enjoy life good about 70 years. But in ancient time, usually people have lots of kids to ensure that several of them will survive, and the life was short. What does this mean? It means that the most of time of a women, they are childbearing and children rearing. But now, they have plenty of time they have never had in the ancient time. So what should they do? The answer is simple: get a job. But are they doing well? Perhaps not. So Erica will talk about defining the problem.
Okay, now I have to define a problem. The reason why women are encountering less opportunities in the hiring process. First, let's dive into social norms, customs, and deep-rooted opinions. In ancient times, women, because of innate factors, they have less power than men, so it's not safe for them to go out. They cannot defend themselves. So, they tend to stay at home, while men go out and guard and hunt, and they stay at home and do works. And next, let's talk about taking Chinese as an example. In Chinese slangs, they tend to say that women is only moral if she doesn't have any talents. If a woman gets herself a job, she is poor and vulgar. In ancient times, women getting jobs are mostly about farmers, or even worse, jobs about sex, such as prostitutes. Thus, the Chinese society keeps educating that women should not get a job, so they should stay at home, work, help their family, and woman is only valuable when she can make her husband and his family happy. And secondly, there are less chance and environment for women to display their ability. Thanks to patriarchal thinking, men keeps dominating the society. They consider that women should be under them, under their control. And they are leaving less chance for women to display their ability. And third, it lacks system for men to share the burden of raising a child with women. Before 1973, the men in the United States of America cannot get the aid for taking parental leave. Only women can take the money. And even till now, many countries, when it comes to laws about raising children, raising elderly, these policies are mainly designed for women, not designed for both genders. And the current policy, help reinforcing the gender division, as I mentioned previously, they're actually more beneficial for full-time housewives that being equal for both genders. Japan has established a policy that, for example, A and B is a couple. A has a full-time job while B has a part-time job. And if B's part-time job's annual income is below 1.03 million yen per year, they can receive a tax reduction. And if A and B lives with elderly, such as their parents or mother or father-in-laws, they can receive another tax reduction. This has built a tendency of women staying at home, taking care of elderly, taking care of family, and rely on her husband's salary. And lastly, some are people aware that gender discrimination is a human rights problem. Gender discrimination oppresses people, and this has strongly affected their basic human rights. And here are the SDGs relevant to the problem. First is number 1, no poverty. 5th, gender equality. 8th, decent work and economic growth. And lastly, 10th, reduce inequalities.
And our group chose Japan as our case, and there are 3 reasons. First, its traditional gender division is still prevailing in such developed countries. Let's look at the time use data in 2021. You can just look at the number with the same column. And it's easy to see that women do 2.5 hours more in unpaid work than men, and they participate less in the labor market. And in such a highly developed society, and men doing a full-time job and women doing a part-time job and taking care of kids is still a typical family. And the second reason, surprisingly, Japan is ranked 125 in the Global Gender Gap Report. Here is a detail about economic participation and opportunity. Look at this small. 1 means fully equal. So you can see there's still quite a big gap in labor force participation rate and wage and estimate earned income. This will lead to a financial dependence on men, and also the lack of presence in the high-level jobs is still a big problem. And the third reason, Japanese women are more likely to fall into poverty. We will show some data in the later part.
So next is our problem. The first cause of this problem is the contradiction with the high-level education of women. Statistics shows that women have the same education level as men, but the women's labor force participation rate is lower than men. And the reason for this phenomenon is because men do not want to see women above them. That is patriarchal thinking. According to UNDP, people around the world still have the bias toward women. And you can see from this chart that these 5 countries have nearly as most percentage of people have the bias toward women. And more than 40% believe men make better business executive than women. And it will make interviewers less likely to hire a woman, so it leads to the fact that women are at least 30% less likely to get a job than men. The second cause is that companies are concerned that women will have to take time off when they get pregnant. And a survey shows that some mothers have thought about leaving a job due to the fear of discrimination from an employer during pregnancy. And this survey indicated that the discrimination still exists in companies, and it will affect interviewers' opinion toward women candidates because they think they have the possibility to take time off, which they will affect their profit. So interviewers will not to hire a woman, and that is the cause. And next is the third cause. Women are expected to stay at home and take care of family. Study shows that women spend more time on doing chores or taking care of family than men. Our society expects women to have the capacity to cook or have the obligation to take care of family, while men do not. This traditional social expectation is deeply rooted in our mind. Sometimes we will unconsciously generate some patriarchal idea or say some words that discriminate against women. People seldom realize that gender discrimination is a human rights issue. Gender discrimination can harm women's basic rights, and people didn't take it seriously. So, next.
So now that we've covered all the causes, we'll be moving on to the 3 consequences of our problem. First of all, women are underrepresented in employment. So because of this, society would lose a huge part of potential productivity that women could have contributed to it. So if we look at this chart, here is a proportion of female employment in Japan. So this phenomenon is especially true in the STEM workforce, meaning scientific, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So students who graduate from the STEM studies, they are more likely to participate in jobs related to energy, transportation, and manufacturing. And you can see that the proportion of female employment in these areas are all very low. The second consequence is that women will be overrepresented in certain types of industry or in the informal sector, and that will reinforce the stereotypes of women. From the same chart, you can see that women are the majority of medication, services, and education, all of which are jobs related to care. So this is what we mean by overrepresentation in certain types of industry. If we look at the problem in a global perspective, we can see that women are still a big percentage in informal jobs, and the same is also true for Japan. So in this chart, the lighter blue line indicates the whole percentage of women in employment, and the darker blue line indicates the women in formal employment. Therefore, there is still a very big gap in between the 2 lines, which represents the women in Japan who are in informal employment. Lastly, when women have difficulty getting a job, they could be forced to get a job with lower income, or they could be forced to get a job with lower income than men in the same job. And this could make women have less income than men, or they could be economically dependent on men. And this will lead to a vicious cycle. So when women are economically dependent on men, it will reinforce society's stereotypes that traditionally social expectations need women to be in the family and be economically dependent on men. So when this happens, we can see that in 2022, women are still earning 17% less than men. And among the 26 million workers who work in a low-wage workforce, 58% of them are women. Even more, of the 7 million people who work in the lowest wage workforce, meaning that they only get less than $10 every hour, almost 70% of them are women. Also, the workforce participation for fathers is 92.5%, This means that when men become fathers, most of them, almost 100% of them, they still participate in the workforce. But for women, it's only 71.2%, meaning that the gap in between are women who lose their individual income after they become mothers. And that makes them economically dependent on their husbands. Lastly, it is the same in Japan also. So for our case of Japan, you can see that the yellow line is the percentage of poverty rates for women for the ages 20 to 64 years old, and the green is the poverty rates for women for the ages above 65 years old. You can see that no matter which age group, the poverty rates for women has always been higher than men. So this is our problem tree as a whole. Now that we've tackled the problem tree, we will move on to the solutions. We thought of 3 solutions. The first solution is to enable women to become entrepreneurs, with methods including encouraging women or providing financial support for them to become the boss of their own companies. When women become the boss of their own companies, then they can then enact non-discriminatory employment policies that are in their company. And therefore, we can finally establish equal representation of all genders in those companies, and society can benefit from the contributions of all genders. We identified 4 stakeholders that are in the primary group. So business and industry, workers and trade union, and women. These 3 stakeholders are the main groups who will be participating in this solution and making it happen. Also, NGOs, non-governmental organizations standing for empowering women or the equity of genders will also stand for this solution and be a big part in encouraging the people to make this solution happen. But while everyone is starting to try to enable women to become the bosses of their own companies, the children and youth will be affected by their mothers, of course. And we can look at this from 2 perspectives. On one hand, because their mothers are bosses of their own companies, they can enjoy a better environment to grow up, and they can enjoy more resources from a family that has more income. So that is a positive effect. But on the other hand, while their mothers are busy being the bosses of their own companies, they might not have enough time to spend with their children. So that is why it could also have a negative effect on children and youth. Lastly, there are many SDG targets and stakeholders that can apply to this solution. And they include Target 5.1, ending all forms of discrimination for all women and girls everywhere, and also decent work for all women and men. Lastly, equal opportunity for everyone.
Response to Solution 1. Government and non-governmental actors enable women to become entrepreneurs. Our case study is try to explain how Japan has dealt with this challenge with some real-life example. The Tokyo government is helping women who want to be managers. They are providing them with the knowledge and skills and need for running business. In addition, they are encouraging these women to explore entrepreneurship. It's called the F Woman Initiative that includes learning, personal support, global adventure, and networking. The Tokyo government is helping women who want to be managers. They are providing them with the knowledge and skills needed for running business. In addition, they are encouraging these women to explore entrepreneurship. It's called the Apt Woman Initiative. From the first round to the seventh round of this program, the participant women were very excited. They said, "We are just start our business, but the real treasure is the friends we've met, the mentor who guide us, and the friends we've met, the mentor who guide us, and the angel investor who support us. That keeps us going." Even the teacher and mentors involved say that being part of this group and having a space to discuss the challenge is big boost for female entrepreneurship. The second case is Japan Finance Corporation National Lifestyle Business support women under 35 or over 55 to start their business with something called New Star Funds. There's more. The Tokyo Metropolitan Small and Medium Enterprise Promotion Corporation runs a program for young female leaders. When women open new shops on Tokyo's busy street, they provide some cash for store makeover or getting the right equipment. It's like a helping hand for a strong start.
Now let's talk about our second solution that we have come up with. Companies concerned about the diversity of its employees. Here are two methods that we come up with. First, enact laws to regulate percentage of female employees in a company. Taiwan has already had a similar policy in order to help women find their jobs and helping the company become more gender diverse. And second one, providing indicators of gender equality developed by government and open it to public. There are some annual reports provided by NGOs or governmental organizations. These can be open to public, and people can see whether this company or whether this country is gender friendly or not. And what will this be? Companies will stop discriminatory hiring practices. First, because of the laws. They don't want to disobey the laws. And second one, they care about their reputations. What if people think that their company are so discriminated? What if people think that their company are so gender unfriendly? They will definitely make some changes, or else their reputation will be very bad. And here are the two objectives. Women can participate more in male-dominated workplaces, such as the STEM. And the gender stereotypes are gradually broken because they can participate more in male-dominated workplaces, even though, according to the statistics now, it takes another 150 years for gender stereotypes to be broken, but at least things are changing. And here are the stakeholders. The primary group are business and industry, workers and trade union, and women. We consider them as positive stakeholders. However, NGOs, this time, they become a secondary group because they can encourage the government to establish laws. They can encourage people. However, they cannot actually doing things to affect people. And here are the SDGs. The SDGs of the second one is actually very similar to the solution one. It all includes and all forms of discrimination, ensure women's full and effective participation, proportion for women in marginal practices, and so on.
In response to solution 2, we think the government should enact laws to regulate percentage of female employees in a company. Make sure you care about employees' diversity. From a case study, The Japanese government has been working on legal change to improve workplace conditions. They have laws like the Child Care and Family Care Leave Law and the Equal Employment Law that have helping reduce discrimination against women at work. The following two tables are from a study on promoting gender equality in Japan, a labor law review. Table 1 shows a consistent increase in women holding leadership roles in private companies. Look at this trend. We can see the situation has improved but still very little, and the top job still the fewest. So we can find that the problem still exists, but there is a chance to be improved. Table 2 shows the participation rate of women in the labor market began to increase, and today female employees make up 70% or more of the workforce in most age groups. At the same time, we can find more women aged 25 to 30 get married and have children. So the data will drop, but there has been progress from 1985 to 2050, especially the 25 to 30 age group has made the most progress.
And next is our third solution. The third solution is to let women have the courage and understand how to fight for their own rights with the growing support of society. There are three methods required. One is education, another is establishing non-discrimination law, and another is to create a grievance procedure. Education can bring women the knowledge to how to fight for their own rights, like the knowledge of laws, and education can also promote the gender equality ideas to children so that they will not have patriarchal thinking in the future. Educating the public is also important. It will gradually decrease the number of people who have patriarchal thinking, and non-discrimination law is needed to create a reliable and effective grievance procedure. And if those three methods are adopted, women will have equal incomes for equal jobs because companies don't want to be fined or harshly judged by publics. And if women have equal income for equal jobs, they will eventually become economically independent. And if they are economically independent, the cycle of traditional social expectation will be broken. And this is the stakeholders related to solution 3. Education, academia, and women they must be the primary group. And business and industry, because women will require to raise salary to achieve the gender equality, so there will be negative impact on it. And grievance institution is needed to create a reliable and effective grievance procedure. And legal and paralegal association is to provide consultation to women who want to fight for their own right or who don't know how the laws work. And workers and trade union is to provide support to women who are fighting for their own right. And children and youth is related to the education, because education is to educate the children. And here's
You have to just, quickly, you have to get to your conclusion now. People can read. So
2 more minutes.
And this is our 3 solution.
And so we identified solution 1 to be the first step for Japan. For the project that we mentioned before, Act Women, is already an example of the solution. And it is the first step that Japan takes to achieve equal rights in the hiring process for women.
Here's the conclusion part. And as you can see, gender equality is a global issue, and even in Japan, we're facing the problem. And it is rooted in patriarchal thinking, which is prevailed for 1,000 years. It's not easy to change this, but not possible if we create the condition. And we need to education for both men and women. We need legislations to make sure gender equality is going to happen. And we also need financial support for women to start their own business to let the potential be utilized. And the last message, I would want to say that gender equality is not only talk about the balancing the power or giving women more or giving men less. It's not only about that. It's about collaboration. It's about live together. So the point, as we mentioned in the very beginning, it's a new problem. So the solution and the equality also lies in the future. What we need to do is to explore the way to collaborate women and men to get a better relationship. It's gonna be good for our society and good for everyone. Thank you.
The floor is open for questions to clarify points that is not clear to you, or maybe comments about potential, different opinions, or suggestions for further, work. So, floor is yours. Please take the time. That will be very useful for the group, especially after they have spent so much energy to think about this gender equality and decent work conditions for all.
Thank you for your in-depth presentation. And I have one small question is that what is the difference?
Speak up, please. Can't hear you.
What is the difference between formal employment and informal employment? And why is informal employment a bad indicator to indicate the inequality in the woman employment rates? I think that is the thing.
So, informal employment, they will have a contract and they will have the full social protection the company provides. But in informal employment, for example, it could be women starting their own small business. It will not be with a formal contract, and even when they retire, they might not have enough retirement funds. So that is the difference.
Do we want to, want to comment? Other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you for your speech. Can you go to solution 1? Yes. So you say that you want to provide a woman with financial assistance. So do you have a criteria that who can be provided with a financial assistance, or like all women can be provided with this assistance?
So for example, Japan has the Apt Women project and other projects, right? So what we're thinking about is whichever women who wants to start their own companies, and they have a specific plan, then they could receive financial assistance.
And I have a second. So would you aware that the men would have like rebounds, or they think that's unfair? The men will think it's unfair because it's a lot.
Repeat slowly.
Okay, so
And louder.
okay, so would you aware that the men will think that unfair because you provide women with financial assistance, but what about other men?
Any thoughts from the rest of the team? Mackenzie, you want to take it, or you wanted to ask someone else to address it?
Well, I think he's made a good point.
Actually, not all projects are targeted at women. There are still many projects finance everyone who wants to start their own business in Japan.
So this is the afterthought.
I got one. So, thank you for all of this. I do agree on some parts, but I have one for you. So, we all know that feminism is a thing, right? I agree with feminism, I agree with equality and all that, but there is like a certain group of people that wants to be the new men in society. We all know that, right? Extreme feminism, that's a thing. So what you're having right now, plus this, what do you think it's gonna do? And if you say equality, do you think that all women and men should have equal rights and equal duties?
That is true.
Then do you think that women should be able, well, take Taiwan for instance, I'm just saying, no offense, just so, what should I say? You know, in Taiwan, when men reach not 18, well, I forgot what the age is, they have the duty to serve the military for 1 year. Do you think that women should be able to do that as well? Since
Well, of course,
equal
it's
rights
also
and
an option for women to serve in the military.
well, is that implemented in Taiwan? No. Is that implemented in
Yeah,
other
but our topic here is decent work and poverty reduction, and we don't think that's relevant.
Okay. Okay, I digress. I apologize. So what? Sorry, can you let me finish?
Thank you very much for this question. Actually, you point out a very good point. It's not easy. It's very easy to say something is unequal, but not easy to say what is equal, right? And I have one thought. Like you see at the beginning of the presentation, our society, actually human behavior, is a combination of biological features and also social norms. So at the beginning, our biological feature change, right? We get longer life expectancy. So this will influence our human behavior and influence the society. And what is equal is also changing with the society change, with our biological feature and technology change. So it's not something never change. It's changing. And and at the last part, I said gender equality is about collaboration. Equality doesn't mean we should do totally the same thing, get the same amount of money and something like that. It's about we live together in a comfortable way. Every of us can live a good life.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I have one question. Besides the work that has a higher relation.
Can you raise your voice,
Okay.
please?
Okay. Besides the work, this kind of work that has high relations with demands of intellectual quotient. I mean, if there are some labor work that you really need to work very hard on your physical condition. So you also admit that female maybe are less can do less labor work than male. So in this case, do you expect that female can reach as high salary as men's level, or maybe you think that female should should spend more time, more work time than male? How to make a balance, or how to reach the real equality between the two salaries level?
Could you define your equality? What do you mean by equality?
Oh, no, equity.
Well, the concept is equal pay for equal work.
Uh-huh.
So perhaps if women and men they achieve the same work and the same
Task.
the same tax, then they of course will have the same income. That is what we are talking about. And if because of physical situations, then women do not achieve as much tax as men, then of course there would be a big difference. But for equal work, there should be equal pay.
Okay, I have one more question. A friend actually asked me this. So if I right now say I identify as a woman, can I also receive these financial resources, or does it have to be biologically a woman?
Very tricky. So we hold on to that. You have a friend? Okay. Okay. Well, this is going to be. Oh, we still have a little bit of time. So okay.
Perhaps we truly appreciate for your speech that it truly elaborated the idea of gender equality to the whole world, and your solution is very effective. So I have a small question: is that once women have discriminated or bias in their working environment, what kind of assistance can they seek for help?
Okay. So we are thinking about creating a grievance procedure so that women can have the way to report their company who have discriminated, or they can seek consultation from NGOs so that they can have the person who supports them to fight for their own rights.
So I'd like to give Cecile, the mentor, the space to comment.
Thank
to
you.
add.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate you because the way you made your presentation and you volunteered to be the first, which was very smart, because now you can relax and criticize the other groups, which will be a lot more fun for you. But I want to congratulate you, and in particular, the way you were able to show some graphs that really illustrate the points that you were making. I just want to make a remark. It was interesting to notice that about 90% of the questions that were asked after your presentation were asked by men. Okay? And the kind of questions that were asked also, in my opinion, they show that you have put your finger on a real problem and that there's still a long way to go to actually achieve an understanding that biological differences do not or should not translate into differences when it comes to rights and opportunities. That is the point about gender equality. You raise the point of the military. You know, there are countries where women have to do their military duty, the most famous one, of course, being Israel. Now, Israel is a country at war, right? But in most armed forces now, women are not only allowed, but even encouraged to become part of the military, and they are now even fighting in combat positions. So what you could consider as the last frontier, quote unquote, for biological differences that should lead to differences in status, that last frontier is gradually being overcome. But fundamentally, it is about equality of opportunities. There are occupations that require, very strong physical qualifications, and for those occupations, the criteria for hiring will be different for men and for women. For example, here in Switzerland, if you want to become a policeman, you have to be very good physically. You have to pass a physical test. The requirements for the women will be lower than for the men because of the physiological differences. So you see, there are many ways of addressing the issue that you have raised without undermining the basic principle that opportunities should be the same for all people regardless of their gender or their race or their beliefs and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecile. We still have a little time. Any other questions, Ramon?
Well, first of all, I'd like to also add to what Cecile said. It's a very good presentation. Congratulations. You did substantially a good presentation, and also as a group. You did a teamwork that's laudable. Just a few comments. At the beginning, and for reference in the next time when you present, don't do world averages when it comes to age and gender, because there's an enormous gap between the developed countries and the developing or least developed countries. So just keep that separate, because otherwise you can run into difficulties. I think also when it comes to education, you mentioned STEAM, which I know is still mostly a man's job or a man's education, but the education in STEAM-related jobs take a long time. So you will have to figure out a way to reorganize education in these particular STEAM subject matters. So women, even if they step out for childbearing reasons, you have to build bridges so they could come back in. Otherwise, this just simply won't be able to last through a long and stressful period of becoming a professional in the STEAM field. Women entrepreneurship, we've done work on women entrepreneurship. What is also known is that women entrepreneurs, especially in more patriarchal societies, become successful entrepreneurs, but they leave the social network behind. The likelihood they can still find a partner and have a family decreases. So they have to figure out a way to accommodate more women entrepreneurship with some form of social adaptation, so they don't end up lonely, so to speak, successful, lonely women entrepreneurs. And one thing deeply below, and you've addressed it several times, there is also culture. I mean, Japan is part of the Confucianist sphere of cultural orientation. That I'm sure you're familiar with the Confucius pair, right? Man, woman, older brother, younger brother, and so on. This patriarchal thinking is to some extent unconscious. It's just there, and people are growing into it. So if you want to have equality, basically you would have to soften the Confucius pairs, which are still quite dominant, which make it much more difficult to women to be at the same level as man. And at the final end, I would say, I was making a reference to psychoanalysis. There is something about societies where men dominate, like Japan. It comes along with an orientation from childhood on for very masculine forms of sexuality, and very much a role that makes it difficult for man to just relax and be more sensuous, to be more fitting into a new generation where the difference, just in terms of behavioral orientation and then social orientation, is a little bit flattened out. So these are, of course, big questions, and how to find solutions to the inherent, deep social convictions. That's if you could go into that additional step, I look forward to reading your proposals.
Thank you. David.
I think I want to follow up because we've all been talking about men, and they practically did not appear in your presentation. You're talking about patriarchal men ways of thinking, and
David, you raise your voice a bit.
yes, okay. So is this better?
Yes, thank you.
What I want to say is, well, many people have now been speaking about men, and also Raymond has been speaking about men. We've had men asking more questions. What about men? Wouldn't they also be a target public in the question of education or awareness raising? That's one question. And the second one was also many of the propositions that you suggest, and it is to increase the income and increase productivity. And we'll probably have another presentation on the whole ecological aspect. But maybe there could also be a place for men to also be more present in the household. So maybe not increase productivity in general, but a more shared burden and more time
Okay, so
for family.
role change needs to require two parts.
Yes.
Not just women's role need to be redefined, men's role also. So I hope you are
Maybe John, sorry, I think
taking
David
notes.
is not finished.
No,
No,
okay, sorry.
I just wanted to ask the question because they did not appear, men did not appear in the stakeholder. And I can understand in the sense that we're talking about women in production, but as Lucia was saying, maybe the other part also has a role. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe that is something we can improve next time.
Okay, Marty, final remark.
A couple of remarks very quickly. First of all, congratulations, great work. It must have been very hard to find all that information. Kudos to you. Your stakeholder charts, they all seem to be very positive. Everybody is aligned behind the idea, which normally in life it is not like that. It's a mix of positive, negative, and neutral. So maybe a revision with a better, more in-depth analysis would show you that not everybody is on the left-hand side. Some are on the right-hand side. The second thing is the cultural thing. Let me assure you, and I think Cecile mentioned it, but let me assure you that it is the same everywhere, not just in Confucian China or in Confucian Japan. It's in Egypt, it's in the United States, it's in Switzerland, and in France. Men still think they're better.
Of course.
They are not. Because a human being is not about the physicality, it's about the brain, for me at least. And the woman can have just as good a brain as a man.
If not better.
I won't go there, but Marie Curie and Pierre Curie, etc. So basically what I'm trying to say is the new generation, your generation, is supposed to start thinking slightly differently. I'm not saying that you have to be 180 degrees on the other side. It will not happen, not at least for the next 100 years. But at least start with 2 degrees, 3 degrees.
Small steps. Okay, so I would suggest that you take note of these comments and make some revision. And so we're looking forward to seeing that the next rendition of your final presentation. I have two remarks just to respond to your question about formal and informal. Contract is, yes, it is important because it reflects a legal obligation to access social protection. So that's the definition between formal and informal. So the example that you gave was not also appropriate, but I understand under the stress of the moment. So that was okay. The second thing I think already brought up is about difference between equality and equity. You notice most of the time those two words used sometimes interchangeably, other times are very distinctively. So maybe adding a page will be very useful. And today the question is, who is a man and who is a woman? I think this is going to be bothering us for some time. How do we define? So perhaps because we have this question of who is a woman and who is a man, it helps us to define rather than based on physiology, but start to base on some external, measurable, observable indicators about what Cecile was saying about access to opportunities. And that is very important. So I want to take the opportunity to thank you for your hard work. I could see the amount of time and energy and discussion have gone into it. So thank you for that, and also having given us a very informative and interesting lecture on the topic that you're working on. So thank you.
I suggest we have a 10-minute break
we
and
have
start again at the 4:15.
I think we will invite Cecile to come up. with the group to take a photo.
Take a picture. Yes.
Maybe you want to switch to your page.